what happens if you're required to attend a mediation and the defendant just doesn't have the money?
That's a difficult situation. If the defendant typically doesn't have money to go to mediation, they probably couldn't afford an attorney. And so often they'll probably be going by themselves.
Hey there, hot messes. Welcome to Success of a Hot Mess, where we celebrate the art of juggling life's chaos and coming out on top. I'm Stacey Isaacs, your host and resident rock star lawyer, dance mom, and survivor. We're going to dive into candid conversations about conquering challenges, embracing our unique selves, and finding success in the beautiful mess of it all. Welcome to the podcast, Success of a Hot Mess. Today, I have my longtime friend and my attorney, Peter Solnick. Welcome. Thanks for coming today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So, Pete, we go way back to the University of Miami, but I don't think I even know where you went to law school.
Oh, that's interesting, because I don't know if you remember, but we were in the casino one time in New Jersey, and you were passing with one of your, old friends of mine, and I had told you I was going to Villanova Law School.
Okay, Villanova,
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right, because you're a Philly guy.
Yeah. So.
Wait, I saw you at the casino?
Yep.
Who was I with?
Jimmy Mayo.
Oh, okay. That's funny.
You were Jimmy, and we passed by. I was with I think your dad was at the time, and I passed by you. You said you were going to Rutgers at the time.
No, I went to Seton Hall.
Seton Hall, that's what I meant, Seton Hall.
Right.
So
you had the right state.
Right, Seton Hall, I remember. And then I said I was going to Villanova. So that's where I went to law school.
Okay, you went to a better law school than
I don't know. It's
Wait,
all this.
You didn't want to go to Miami?
I was ready to just leave Miami for a little while. And, I just wanted to go back home and, do something a little bit different. And I don't know, it just was one of those things. I was just tired of college, and just everyone was going back to their respective hometown. So I just think that I just wanted to do that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Want to be closer to family.
Right.
And I didn't have anyone down here.
So what brought you back here?
I would say that in 2002 was February, or 2003 in February, I was working. I was practicing law for about 3 years then. And I had an epiphany one day, and it snowed every single day in Philly. It was awful. And driving to work was not fun. And I think I just had an epiphany at that time. I had no one left in Philly. I lost my parents. They died a couple years before in 1996 and 99. And I said to myself, I need a new, fresh start. And I said to myself, this is the perfect opportunity. I didn't have a lot of ties anymore, just, very limited family there. And I said, I had a lot of friends here. I said, I'm going to do it. Took the Florida bar and decided to come back.
Do you have siblings?
Interestingly enough, I did have a sibling who also passed away in 2001. After I lost my parents, it was in June of 2001. So that kind of, really motivated me to kind of just say, hey, listen, I think I need a fresh start here.
Seriously, one of the most tragic things I've ever heard. How does a person bounce back from that?
I'll tell you, just, you want to be successful. You want to make your parents proud, and you have a goal. And you put one foot in front of the other, and you have bad days and you have good days, and you just do the best you can to, try to appreciate the good days that you have and appreciate the things you have, because we're all going to the same place one day. And I just felt like I had a goal in being successful and being good at what I do, and that's why I take pride in it. I love it, and that's why I really put a lot of effort into it, and I'm really, I would say, very passionate about it, where a lot of lawyers maybe aren't. And I enjoy it. I enjoy helping people, and I think it gives me a purpose. And so I just decided to really just, choose glass half full than glass half empty. And some people don't do that.
Did you go right out on your own, or you started somewhere?
Yeah. So when I was it was 1999, 2000. I worked for a law firm in Philly doing actually labor and employment law, which I took, before that and as an undergrad class. And so I developed a liking towards it. And so I decided that was a field I wanted to go into and do labor negotiations. And up in Philly and New Jersey, unions are very effective. And I worked for a law firm that only represented school districts, 600 school districts in Pennsylvania. And so I did civil rights litigation representing the schools in Title VII claims and really wrongful termination, discrimination. And also the 504 claims, IDEA for people who have disabilities. I actually represented the school districts in those. And also collective bargaining negotiations, where you'll sit across the table with unions and try to sit down and narrow down and try to iron out a collective bargaining agreement that's fair for the school districts and fair for the unions. And down here, it's not as prevalent because they just don't have as much power, because they don't have the right to strike, whereas up in Pennsylvania, at least when I was practicing, they did.
So you worked for that firm, and then you moved here and said, I'm going on my own?
Well, I worked for actually a bank. I decided that labor and employment, although I enjoyed it, was something that I wanted to. I was a business law major in college, and I think that I wanted to try business, and I worked for a bank at JP Morgan Chase for like a year and a half, 2 years. And then I decided to end that because I thought it was kind of boring, to be honest with you, really like mundane. And then I decided to work with another guy in Aventura who really taught me a lot and taught me really how to litigate and really, take depositions and really iron people down and narrow their positions and really, think outside the box and try cases and go before a jury and be able to convince people of your positions. And I worked there for a long time alongside him, and was working on my own at the same time. But
So he was like a mentor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great things I took from him. Some things I would do differently. I still talk to them today. They're really sensational lawyers. It's just, and I collaborate with them. Still, from time to time, litigate cases with them. It's just I choose to kind of like be on my own and make my own decisions and make my own hours and make my own choices and litigate the cases that I believe that that I make all the decisions.
So your practice is it mostly employment, or?
I would say so it changes. I would say 25% employment. I would say 55% like commercial and business litigation, like disputes like securities fraud or just fraud claims or breach of contract, partnership disputes, IP litigation, trademark and copyright litigation, and then the other part probably like cases like yours, like defamation and little tort claims and things like that. So I'm really broad based. I just don't do personal injury. I refer all the workers' comp clients to you.
Yes.
And I typically never do family, and I've never been in a criminal courtroom. Maybe once when I was 26.
Okay, well that's good. So let's talk about defamation, because I learned so much, and I did hire you as my attorney, and I only knew you in the capacity as like sweet, nice Pete.
Right.
But when I saw you attack opposing counsel, it was like seeing this whole other person. You're definitely what I would say out of character in your attorney hat. Do you agree? Like in your personal life, are you more easygoing?
So, I mean, you would probably be able to, assess that more than I can. I think generally speaking, I think I'm pretty easy to get along with. I think I'm pretty friendly to people. I think I'm always try to say hello to everybody. Anyone we went to college with, I was always, I think, on pretty good terms, and always was polite and nice and don't speak negatively about people. But certainly in a courtroom, I have this probably
alter ego.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to characterize it. That, if anyone's ever I never really had to argue with people like in college or like high school, but if I ever did, I think that over the years, honestly, of like losing your parents, of having a lot of, trials and tribulations and going through that experience, I've just learned how to defend myself and learned how to stick up for myself and stick up for other clients as well. It's like a lot of life experience. I don't think it's innate. That's my personality. I think I developed into that. But I think I'm definitely probably different in my work than I am in my personal life.
Yeah, I never would have known that. But yeah, you were feisty. And just for any listeners, basically I left a negative review, numerous reviews on various platforms about a company, and they decided to turn around and sue me for defamation. So they believed my statements were false. Would that be a good way?
Correct. That's a good way to characterize it. They believe your statements were false and that somehow it caused them harm.
Right. So I learned a lot through this process. First of all, I learned about the circuit court system, which is very different than the workers' comp system.
Absolutely.
And ours is administrative court. Like, we don't even have juries, but I have to say ours is run in a much more organized manner. Mm-hmm. I must have gotten maybe on at least 3 occasions you would call me and be like, we have a hearing like 2 days from now. You must be there live, and there's nothing anyone can do about it.
Correct.
I'd be like, what?
Yeah. So sometimes, it's, you got to feel bad, understand the judges as well, as they have 2, 3, 4,000 cases, and it's very difficult for them to manage. So I sympathize with the judges. They do expect us to be on time. They expect us to be, present. They expect us to make sure that we file things on time. And that's because they do have so many things that are going on at one time. So it's not always their fault. And sometimes things happen in people's personal lives. Like our opposing counsel in our case said, I have to go to my child's pre-K graduation. So that's why our trial got continued. So there's nothing anyone can do about that. The judges do try to be fair and practical. And it's very difficult for them sometimes to manage their cases. If you were in federal court, which would be a lot different because they have staff to be able to help them. In state court, they just don't have those resources. It comes all from the taxpayers, where the federal government funds the federal judges, and it's a little bit easier for them to manage.
But there were certain things I had to pay for or split the cost with that company that I don't know how your average defendant would be able to cover. So what happens if you're required to attend a mediation and the defendant just doesn't have the money?
That's a difficult situation. If the defendant typically doesn't have money to go to mediation, they probably couldn't afford an attorney. And so often they'll probably be going by themselves. You're very fortunate. You work hard, like you and your husband work your tail off and you're able to do it. But even then, it's annoying for you to have to pay, even if you have a level of success, to have to pay somebody for something that that you shouldn't have been sued for.
Yes, and you gave me the friends and family rate too.
Yeah, of course.
But so let's talk about this case. So I left a review, and a lot of people would say to me, is this for real, that the company didn't like your review, they're suing you? Isn't there a First Amendment right? Isn't that what reviews are for? Was this the first time you had seen an individual get sued by a business?
No, not at all. I've actually had very similar things happen. It happens often now, and what people try to do, businesses and individuals, is that they try to file these lawsuits in order to kind of, I wouldn't say censor somebody, in order to try to get them to take those reviews down, because those reviews, as you know, in your business, reviews mean something. I know that I always ask people to write a good review for me if I did a good job, and I don't tell them what to write, but I say, hey, listen, would you mind writing me a review? Because people do take those seriously. They review them and they say, hey, you have such great reviews. I want to hire you. I trust you because these other people had said something good about you and said you're tenacious, or they said you're smart, or they said that you really care about your clients. And then they'll talk to you, and then based upon their conversation with me, they'll take that review and say, oh, that makes sense. Like, I see that in his personality. And then, just use like some common sense and just get a good feeling and then make a decision and hire you that way. So I think it is important.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling about the whole thing was that they were like trying to make an example out of me or something, like, don't give us a bad review because we will take you to court. I mean, they took it all the way to trial, and then why don't you tell people what happened?
Yeah, so we were set for trial the first time, and what happened was that the other opposing lawyer said that he obviously had an issue of, he had his child's preschool graduation, and he said he couldn't really try it in the amount of time that the judge allocated for us. The judges can't give you unlimited amount of time. They have a bunch of cases and have to kind of set their schedule based upon what lawyers kind of represent to them as how long it's going to take. So, if they have 20 cases to try, they say, hey, we have this amount and we can fit this one in here, this one there, that one there. And then unfortunately, opposing counsel said he couldn't do it within the time frame allocated by the court. So we got delayed. We were going to be set for trial again, got pushed a couple times because the judges are busy and they try to take the cases that are the oldest on the docket first. And so eventually when we were getting set for trial, before that, the parent company filed bankruptcy, which kind of complicated everything. And the subsidiary, which was wholly owned by the parent company, kind of puts a little, problems because they don't have the money probably to fund the litigation anymore, that they're worrying about trying to, survive in bankruptcy court. And so that kind of delayed it. And I certainly was advocating for your position and, trying to explain to opposing counsel that the benefit that they're gonna have by going to trial is gonna be nominal, because not only do they not have any sufficient evidence to prove that you did anything wrong or said anything false, it just doesn't make sense that they were gonna go and spend all those legal fees on it.
Well, their attorney tried to withdraw, right, because he wasn't getting paid?
Yeah, he withdrew, and the court definitely allowed him to withdraw. And I think right before he withdrew from the case, he kind of told me that they were going to agree to the dismissal.
So how many times during the 2 years of litigation, we tried to settle it for, I think at one point I maybe was offering $2,000 or something, and they wanted $150,000.
Yeah.
And they wanted me to remove the review, which I never did.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to talk about the amounts necessarily, but I would say that you definitely made a good effort to try and settle the case. And, for whatever reason, they were trying to make a point, trying to get you to agree to take it down, and trying to get you to admit that you did something wrong. And obviously you would never admit that you did something wrong or made a false statement about someone when you didn't.
Were there ever any points that you thought maybe I would lose the case?
I wouldn't say that, I would say this, that I never thought that you'd lose the case. I always thought our position, especially when we got to trial that day before trial, before Judge Bowman, and we got to the court that day and I had all my exhibits, I felt good about our position. I always felt like the statements that you made were truthful and or in the form of an opinion or hyperbole, where you just exaggerated something. And so I always felt good about it, but I'm certainly not the jury. There's 6 people there that you never met before that can form whatever opinion they want. And even though I felt that we should have won on a motion for summary judgment, I think it was very clear that the court could have decided that all the statements you made were truthful and or just in the form of an opinion. The court decided not to, and is very probably conservative about it.
Wait, didn't we pick a jury?
No, we never got to pick the jury. We never got to pick.
Okay.
We were ready for the jury to come out. They had selected the people that were going to be on the panel, but that's when opposing counsel had advised the judge that he wasn't available for that sufficient amount of time. We actually just argued the jury instructions, and you had left for that because you didn't need to be present for it.
Right.
We were close. We should have picked a jury, and I actually was really looking forward to trying that case, because I do think that you would have gotten all your attorney's fees paid back. Maybe not because they filed bankruptcy later. Maybe there wouldn't have been anything to recover because they had no money. But, I don't know that because we never got to that point. For you, I thought it was the best decision just to walk away. You didn't have to spend too much money, litigating it. More than obviously than you'd want to spend. You obviously shouldn't have had to spend it, but those are the costs of doing business sometimes. That's why I think reviews are very important, I think, on a positive level and negative. I think that consumers, should post negative reviews about people because you want to warn other people about going to businesses. That's what the reviews are there for. I actually look, if I have, trying to hire a contractor or trying to hire someone to do work.
You read reviews.
You want to see somebody that is reputable and that does a good job. So I think it's important on both sides. And I think that you had an absolute right to say how you felt about that business.
Do you think, we're attorneys. Let's say a client leaves us a bad review. Would you ever turn around and sue the client for defamation?
If they said something absolutely false about me, I would consider it, of course. I would. I think that'd be important. Now, what I usually do is I have someone that responds to the reviews, And the 2 negative reviews I have are all 2 clients that I actually never accepted the engagement, and I turned down.
So they're upset.
Yeah, so they're upset because I didn't like their case. And so they criticized me because I didn't like their case, or maybe sometimes clients will, in their defense, I understand they're upset. I understand that they're feeling emotional and they want to tell their entire story. But, we have kids, we have families, we have events that we have to go to, and you can't always give, and we have work, and we can't always give someone an unlimited amount of time in order to tell their entire story. So sometimes, unfortunately, you have to cut it short, and sometimes they get insulted, and that's kind of what happened to me.
Well, at least you bill by the hour. I work on contingency only, so sometimes the clients, they take advantage maybe of that, that they don't have to pay for each phone call.
Well, I take some on contingency and some on billable hours. I would say I'm 30% incentive and 70% billables. And I like it because, there's a lot of cases that clients, these cases can go on for years. I remember a matter that, it was a gentleman who lived in Sweden, and he's a famous Swedish composer who got hit for $3 million from a company actually in Delray Beach. And, he invested in a company, and really what we felt was he was defrauded, and they made false statements to him. And, he didn't have the money to fund the litigation. So I took on an incentive fee, had a good idea about it. They made false statements to him in order to get him to invest in that company. That's securities fraud. And so we sued on his behalf, and then we were able to recover and get an incentive out of it.
So you work in federal court as well?
Yeah. So I do about, I would say 20% federal court, 80% state. But, federal court, it's a limited court of limited jurisdiction. So you don't have so many cases that always arise there. They have to arise under a federal statute, or the 2 parties have to be from 2 different states. And so it's very limited.
So how do you get these leads for workers' comp that you refer to us?
So, obviously I do marketing like you guys. We try to, I'd say get people to look at our website and look at what we do. And when they look at our website and they see that they put in different terms and say employment matters or things like that, I'll pop up and they'll ask me about a workman's comp. They said, hey, I was injured on the job and then this happened. I said, well, you don't need me. You don't need a labor lawyer. You don't need a civil litigation lawyer. You need Stacey and David and your other partner,
William.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get the same thing. We'll get I was terminated or I'm being harassed by my boss, and then we say you got to call Pete.
Right. Yeah. So it overlaps a little bit because it is employee related, and when they put in the right certain terms in Google or Yahoo or something, internet search engines, it'll come up my firm, and then I'll say, well, I do employment stuff, but that's not necessarily workers' comp. They necessarily wouldn't always know to put in that particular term. If you put in workers' comp, I'm never going to come up.
Right.
But if they put in, employment matters, or civil litigation, then I will.
So do you love what you do?
I do.
You do?
I do. I think that for the first 10 years, it's a little challenging because you're not good at it, right? It's hard because, you're learning and you take a lot of hits and you're told you're wrong all the time. And, even as a professional, you don't want to be told you're wrong all the time. Yeah. You feel like you have all this education and you're told you have to really have thick skin. Even today, I don't like to be told I'm wrong, but often, that just happens. And so, but I do love it. I developed into loving it. I never thought that I would like litigation, never anticipated doing that, but I do. And I like going to trial. I like taking depositions. I like being able to have, it's almost like I equate it to, playing football or something like that. It's like, it could be
strategic.
Yeah, it's strategic, but at the same time, you get hit pretty hard sometimes.
Yeah, that's
and you
true.
gotta be tough. And I think to be successful at it, you have to have thick skin and know that everything. I mean, even Tom Brady didn't win every game, right? And he loses, and even though he has 7, Super Bowl titles, he played in 12 or 13 of them or something, or 10 of them, and still loses and still comes back and is successful. So that's kind of how you equate it to like a football game or something like that, because it's strategic, but at the same time, it's tough.
Yeah, it's tough arguing for a living.
Yeah.
If you weren't a lawyer, what would you be? Like, what's your dream job?
What's my dream job? I would say my dream job would to be work like
Sports somehow, right?
Yeah, I think sports. Sports. I mean, obviously, like, I'm 5'9", I'm a 5'9", kid from Pennsylvania, and but I would have loved to, like, play tennis for a living, which was my dream, or baseball, like, which I played in high school, and I played golf in high school, but I would never be able to be a pro golfer. But I would say that, sports, but if it wasn't sports, because that's not really attainable for most people, I would say somewhere in finance. I would say, on, like, Wall Street, of, like, for an investment firm, and being able to, like, analyze companies and be able to, like, recommend to investors and look at their books and records and be able to, like, make stock picks and things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So gambling, legalized gambling.
It is and it isn't. That's the funny you said that. I don't think it is. Like, if you look how, like, Warren Buffett, invests his money and people like that, and, like, look at, like, a very long-term view, I would say that if you look at the stock market going back from a certain period of time, you could see it gradually goes up, and especially with inflation. And I think that you pick companies who make money, who always, like, have cash at the end of the year and have sufficient cash flow and make profits. I think that that's not gambling.
What were you doing in the casino that time?
That's probably what my
were
friends.
You by yourself?
No, I was with a couple of friends of mine from high school, and I'm sure
okay.
they were gambling. I'm not a big gambler, and obviously, I gambled a little bit here and there, but not often. I'm not good at it. I'm terrible. I think I make better choices in practicing law. But I would say that I was probably it was a couple of friends down Atlantic City and Margate and Ventnor, which and Longport, where often my friends still go today. And so I was probably at the greenhouse that night or something.
Right.
I was probably there.
I'm familiar with the greenhouse.
Yeah. So, and I was actually just there, and I didn't even go down the casino. I was actually.
Yeah, it's really, like, dirty now.
Yeah.
Atlantic City.
Yeah.
What do you do when you're not working? You have kids.
Yeah. So I think this, obviously, but I'm an avid, I work out a ton. So I still run every morning.
How much do you run?
So I typically run anywhere. I do those Peloton classes. So shout out to Peloton, which I love. And
do you like Olivia's classes?
I like Olivia. I think she's nice.
Oh,
I think she's good. I like her classes. But I'm a huge fan of Selena Samuela and Bex Gentry, and also Andy Spear, who, by the way, is a Hurricane.
He is?
Yeah, he's a Pike. He is a Pike.
That I could see.
Yeah.
But when we were there, he's younger.
No, he's a little bit younger than us, but I think he's like in his late 30s, mid 30s, and he was a runner at University of Miami.
Did not know that.
And then and I also like Alex Toussaint, and then Adrian Williams. So I take their typical 5 classes, but I actually was just in the Peloton studio in New York 2 weeks ago and took a class.
Is it cool? I've tried so many times to get in, and, like, you have to pre-book. It's very hard.
Very hard. But what you need to do is that you go on the Thursday. It's like 30 days before the classes come out, and you have to just sit on there on your phone and sit on the computer and just wait. And so you can get in, but you have to make sure you get in quick.
So you did a ride, or
I never rode a bike.
Okay.
I did a 30-minute run with Selena.
Okay.
And she was so nice and so cool.
Did you get a shout out? Does she know you're a big fan?
Well, I mean, she didn't know I was a fan, but she saw us in the class, and, like, obviously on the board, and they, she gave us high fives beforehand, and then she would shout out our names here and there during the class. And so that was pretty cool. So I think if you take that class, it was on, actually, I think it was November 1st. If you go back to November 1st class of...
I'm going to go look.
Yeah, it was a 30-minute run, and it was awesome, and the studio was really cool. The trainers there were really nice, and took pictures after, and it was a really, really cool experience. I'm a big fan of Peloton, and,
And Robin was an attorney for a while.
Yeah, she went to Villanova Law.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, she went after me, but I think she graduated 3 years after me, Robin Arzon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so she went to Villanova Law, and she does some class. She did more classes in the past. I think she does more biking classes.
And like weights. She does weight.
So I do mostly the running ones, and the boot camp and running.
Okay.
So I typically do that. So I I would say I play pickleball and I play tennis. So you don't have time for everything anymore.
I know.
I put my golf clubs.
You hung them up?
I hung them up.
Yeah, that's a time, like, you need time to play golf.
You need hours on end. It's like practicing.
Hours.
It's like practicing law. It's like anything else. It's like you have to practice in order to be good at it. And I didn't have that time, and I stunk so bad that I just had enough of it. And actually, when I moved, by accident, my clubs were in the trash, and one of those 1-800 junk things.
Oh, okay.
It took my clubs away.
Oh my gosh.
And I never got new ones, and I was excited to never play again.
Oh, all right. Well, as long as you're not heartbroken about it.
No. So those things, that's what I typically do. But I work a lot, I enjoy it.
And how's the dating scene?
How's the dating scene? That's an interesting question.
At our age, how is it? It's probably different for a guy.
It's different. I would say, I was engaged, not too long ago, and, kind of didn't work out. Very, sad. And I haven't really dated a lot since then. It's not, I would say that it's pretty easy to meet someone, but it's hard to meet someone you really are compatible with.
That's true.
It's very difficult. And, my patience is probably less than it was years ago. And so we'll see what happens, right?
It'll happen when it's meant to happen.
Yeah. I just recently, obviously ended that. So, and, we just wasn't working. And so, you just kind of move on and put one foot in front of the other and kind of just do the best you can.
You've been through worse, it sounds like.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't even tell you, there was one of the things that I really learned and how I think I'm really good at what I do. Obviously you can always be better, right? Is that I was involved in a bad car accident in law school too, where a tire jumped over a median on 95 and hit me in the head.
A tire?
A tire fell off another car and
hit you in the head?
Yeah, in the head.
Were you in a convertible?
No, it was it was a truck, and it came right through my windshield, hit me in the head, right in the face.
Crazy.
I was in the hospital for 4 weeks.
I didn't know this.
Yeah, I was at the and then, I was involved in major litigation against a person who was supposed to help our family after my dad passed away, and which I know that he did a lot of bad things, and so I was involved in major litigation, and I learned at that time how to really defend myself and to kind of figure out how people can look to appear to you to be so honest, but yet they're lying to your face. And and that's how I think I got so good at it. So a lot of what I do today is experience in the court, but I think a lot of personal experience on my own of learning. And, that's why I think that no matter what happens to you, good or bad, you just try to take the positive from it and take the, things you learn from it and move on.
I like that advice. You turned trauma into...
Absolutely. You're not going to be here forever, right? So why worry about your problems when you're, you can't take them with you.
It's true.
So, you might as well just enjoy as best you can.
I like that. So on that note, Pete, always good to see you. Thank you for coming today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'll see you soon.
You got it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Success of a Hot Mess. If you loved what you heard today, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a beat. And hey, sharing is caring. Share this podcast with your friends, family, and anyone who could use a dose of inspiration. Until next time, keep rocking those hot mess moments with style and grace. Cheers.